Recording. Hello. Rick DiClemente. Hi. Welcome to Astrology Unplugged. I'm Rick with starself.com. And we're ready to go tonight. And what's happening tonight is that last week there were so many surprising people who really enjoyed the talk about the body parts, where I did most of the talking, and Elke and Karen chimed in and really added a lot to it, and I think it surprised a lot of people. A lot of people don't know that astrology can be used in so many different dimensions. Anyhow, I really kind of hurried things last week because I wanted to get to my guinea pig at the end, and that is reserved tonight for, I don't think she's with us. If you are, speak up, but Holly Gipford and Ruthie Hale. If I don't hear from Holly tonight, hi. Okay, Holly, I got you. I just wasn't familiar with your last name. So, Holly, you will be covered in the last part of the show. Okay, so anyhow, tonight, we're going to continue about the body parts because we did hurry through some, and I got to be inconsistent last week, and people said to me, you did not do Sag, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Yes, Marilyn? Yes?
Yeah, we're getting a radio station on the audio. All right, it stopped.
Okay, we're going to continue because I did not cover what Sag looks like, Capricorn looks like, Aquarius, and Pisces. And then what I thought we would do, Elke, and I think Karen will fall into place nicely too, is talk about what happens when Mars hits us. What happened when Jupiter hits us, Saturn, and mainly Mars, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto? What happens when the big boys hit us to our bodies? How do we categorize it? What's real, what's not real, etc.? And I think you'll find it pretty fascinating. John, if you don't mind covering the chat room and keep me abreast of anything that I can't take the time to look at. Thank you. Anyhow, the Sagittarians have a horsey face. They have a long, elongated face, and I went through a lot of names today, and the best example I can give you of a Sagittarian body type, the facial shape, is John Kerry. John Kerry is an excellent example of an elongated horsey face, kind of oval. That's just, we're not hearing a child screaming? No, because everybody's muted. So everybody's muted but me, Marilyn. Okay, now the Sages that I told you have, Marilyn, you may want to log out and back in, that might help. Okay, the Sagittarius, I told you disproportionately they have larger hips than usual, or maybe larger thighs. Capricorns have a classical look. Don't look at me, but look at people like Martin Luther King, especially Faye Dunaway, a classical look, almost like a statue. You see it with Rod Serling had it, Elvis Presley had it. They're a classical look. They're not whimsical looking. They look kind of serious. Also, a real good one was the old timer you'll remember on the FBI show. What was his name? Robert Stack. Robert Stack is a real good example of a Capricorn look. Humphrey Bogart, very classical look. Okay. Capricorns have like angular features, like they're chiseled in stone. Okay, now I don't have time to address the questions, so I'm going to have to ignore them for right now. And welcome, Susan. She got back in time. Okay, the Aquarians are very interesting because what's so giving about an Aquarian, even with people with Aquarius rising or a lot of Uranus, a lot of Aquarius, they have parallel face. It's very parallel. And then it rounds down into a gentle curve. These things are distinctly Aquarian. Parallel sides, rounding down, oftentimes, very oftentimes, beautiful legs. Aquarian women are known for beautiful legs. You don't see it all the time, but when you see just dynamite looking legs, that's an Aquarian feature. Pisces, I can't tell you much about how they look, other than, just truthfully, the main thing about a Pisces is they can be as nice as can be, but you reach inside and you can't find them. You can't find a Pisces anywhere. They're so big. They're so universal. They're not trying to escape you, but they belong to the ocean. You reach inside and they're not there. Anyhow, we're going to open this up rather soon for any of your questions about the body, but I want to work especially with Elke on this. I'm going to unmute you, Elke. I'm going to start with Mars. I'm going to skip Jupiter because usually when Jupiter goes over, you just have a good time. Mars, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Okay, Mars, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. 5 planets. Okay, when Mars transits you, when I say transit, I cannot stop and look at everybody's chart and tell you when Mars is hitting you. And I've already told you many times, always know where Mars is. Always know where Mars is because it will kick your butt if it sneaks up on you, like it did me last week. Okay, even though I knew it was there. Now, Mars, when it opposes you, when it squares you, when it conjuncts a planet, usually it's well timed 1 degree away. It will also hit you when it's exact, but it will always hit it at its maximum strength. It triggers 1 degree away from when it's hitting. Mars gives you a fever, almost always. When you have a little kid, they almost always get a fever for 2 days. Raising my little one, Mom and I knew about astrology. He would get fevers, and of course we were concerned. We kept an eye on him, but we knew it would pass. 2 days later, we were gone. Very common. Mars rules the muscles. Mars shoots up your adrenaline in your body. It speeds up the muscular activity. Mars makes you feel a little bit more aggressive. You are prone to head injuries when Mars is there. You're prone to cutting yourself when Mars is there, yes. But it largely depends on what Mars is combining with, what planet it's hitting with. I remember a guy in 1983, I was on the radio and I told this guy he was a machinist. 1983. And I gave him a date 3 months ahead of time, and I didn't want to scare him. That's the tricky thing. You want to alert people but not scare them. It's very hard to do. So I alerted this guy. He worked in a metal shop. Well, Mars was going to hit his Uranus. Mars was going to hit his Uranus. That's a very bad combination for guns, for getting cut. I warned him. I gave him the date. He put it on his calendar. I said, when you go to work that day, make sure you've got a hard hat on and be very careful around all this machinery, or take the day off. So what does he do? He goes to work and he forgets about it, right? At the last minute while he's walking into the plant, he remembered that was the day. And on that day, true story, on that day, he worked in a metal lathe. And on that day, a piece of hot metal flew through the air and went into his ear. Lost all his hearing for good in that ear. Now, I feel that if I hadn't warned him, it could have been worse. And I feel there were other reasons that he got hurt. But I feel just the fact that God alerted him through bringing to that information ahead of time, I think it could have gone in his eye. It could have been a machine. Who knows what could happen. But anyhow, Elke, I think you've seen it yourself. Mars is very, very common as the trigger to what's brewing. What do you have to see? What do you see?
Well, it also has to do with inflammation,
Yes.
you know, and like say, people that have autoimmune disease, that's when it'll flare, you know, and the inflammatory markers will arise, and yeah, you just see it. It's not nice.
Well, I just had the fall a week ago, and I tell you what, I've been dealing with so much inflammation, it's just scared me. But finally, it's getting better, so I'm really relieved about that. But you're exactly right. So Mars is the pain in the butt planet when you're new at astrology, because you're watching Mars. Oh my God, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. Huh, Patricia, isn't that true? Here it comes, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes, and you sweat it out, and it goes by, and maybe something happens. So you got to live it. You got to live with it. You know, you're going to have to sweat out times knowing it's there, because you're not in the old world of not knowing.
What it is, it's heat. It's hot. It's fiery. It's got a very fiery energy, and it heats everything up. It heats the head up. It heats the throat up. Whichever planet it hits or area it hits, that's where it applies heat to.
Now, the thing about it is, now you got to remember, the Mars is going to trigger, and it's going to have its own nature, but whatever it's hitting, if something really big happens, it's hitting something. That's why I've been telling you about Trump for months, about July 1st, because Pluto's been sitting on his sun. And Mars came along and agitated the Pluto that's on his sun. That's why it's been so tumultuous. But it's not been in his natal chart. It's been in his 10th harmonic chart, which is a chart of his public status. That's why I think the peak, the turning point with his presidency was symbolic of that video of him punching that CNN sign. Because he didn't end his presidency, but it brought Humpty Dumpty off the wall and he cracked. That's what happened. Because the 10th harmonic is the chart you look at for when people lose their honor or they lose their position in the world. And look what's happening overseas. So many things have to happen, but I think that was a turning point. Once again, I apologize. I don't have time to read the chats, and if John finds something significant, we'll get into that. He's my reader. Okay, very good. But you're exactly right. You get feverish. You get feverish, including you're a temper and you want to fight. All those things that are typically Martian. And cuts and head bumps. All right. Now let's start getting into the good stuff, the outer planets. Now, when Saturn hit, yes, John has a question. John, go ahead.
Holly was asking, she thought Jupiter could cause diabetes and cancer. And I think that is something that you
I've never seen anything with Jupiter linked to the disease called cancer. I've never seen it.
Yeah. Is it because well, you go ahead. You go ahead.
No, not really. Not necessarily cancer. It can only cause cancer if it's connected with a really bad malefic. It depends on the makeup of your natal chart. You know, if you have the setup for cancer in your natal chart, then it could trigger it. But it really all depends. You can't overgeneralize. You know, and diabetes is more ruled by Libra, anything in Venus.
I want to alert you to something. She just used the word malefic. Malefic and the word benefic are old words that have been used a lot. All through astrology, you hear benefic and you hear malefic. You guys can use them. You guys cannot use them. It's up to you. According to astrology, the malefic, or the bad guys, are Saturn and Mars. These are known as the malefics. In the old days, they have a much worse reputation than they do now. The good guys, the benefics, are Jupiter and Venus. I don't believe in them, but there are a whole lot of people that do. So don't listen to me, make up your own mind. But when other planets...
Rick, I was just going to say, you do tell your students to watch for Mars. That's the one that you always...
I said watch for Mars as it triggers.
Mars, wherever it is.
Mars can also trigger good things, but it does trigger.
Yeah, it all depends on the makeup, on what it's triggering.
The difficulty with Mars is Mars says, what are you doing about this? And most people are not acting on this. They're trying to get out of acting on this. That's why it could be known as a bad guy. Now, I'm not going to argue if it's benefic or not, because I don't have the answer. But an awful lot of people call it that, and just be aware of it. So the newer folks don't use it. The older folks do. I can certainly see Elke's point.
In medical astrology, that's what you're taught. You're taught to classify because the medical astrology comes from way, way back. And in medieval times, that's what they did. That's what they called it. I mean, yeah, you're right, too, because it should really be modified, you know.
They really were called that, no doubt about it.
And in the olden times, because that's the only way that they had to classify disease, or, you know, to diagnose disease. So if Mars came around, people knew that they were going to be in trouble because there was no such thing as aspirin to bring the fever down. I mean, it would kill people, or, you know, any inflammation, it would do people in. And whereas now we have treatments for that. So in the olden times, they didn't have that. So it was it was graver, more significant when a more negative planet came by.
Now, what I was answering John and Susan, I'm not sure which Susan, it doesn't matter, but when I speak of hitting you, I work mainly with conjunctions, oppositions, and squares. The planet can hit you by semi-sextile. It can be 30 degrees. It can be 45 degrees. It can be 125 degrees. There are lots of different aspects, but I mainly have my hands full just dealing with squares and oppositions and conjunctions. Elke may work with sextiles and others, whatever you want, quincunxes. There are many aspects, but what I'm saying to you is when it combines with you by aspect, it's what it does. Now let's move on to Saturn, because we got a lot to do. Now, Saturn's a big deal, because Saturn's nature is to coalesce. It brings things into form. You ever hear that saying, you better get that frown off your face or it's going to end up looking like you later on? That's Saturn. That's Saturn. You keep frowning and you're forming. Later on, it becomes formed. Saturn's job is to put into form. Some people call it limiting, but what it does is it coalesces. It brings things into form. Crystallizes. Yes, real arthritis, real knee problems, real cancer, real brain tumors. It takes bad energy. We'll talk to Karen now, who's our energy worker out of Florida. If you got bad vibes, it's going to get stuck in the body. And as I turn this over to Karen, who's an energy expert and an energy unblocker, if you've got energy blocked, it's going to turn into something, and I'll give it to Karen.
Yeah, it will, every time.
That's what Saturn does.
It will, absolutely. If you think of a spider web, our body is held together with something called fascia that's like a spider web. And when you have something like this happen, it literally takes that spider web and twists it up and holds it in your body.
Yep.
And, you know, there's things you can do to try to mitigate it. But that's why, to me, astrology with the energies of the planets, that's why I want to know, because there's two things in Oriental medicine that I'm trying to put together with astrology that are pretty common and pretty well known. And I'm not going to tell you I know what they are. I mean, as far as how they relate to all of this, but I know that they relate.
The opposite of Saturn is Neptune, where Saturn takes it and puts it into form. Neptune takes it from form and dissolves it. So when you're having weirdisms in your body and Neptune's on you, the astrologers are more likely to say to you, it's your imagination, or it's your being too sensitive. It's not really real, and it's likely to pass by. But if you're in trouble when Saturn comes, the trouble's going to intensify. I got a friend here who's been having continual heart problems in the past year, and Saturn keeps going back and forth over his sun. Sun rules the heart in the back. Sun rules the heart in the back. He's had several heart operations. Here comes Saturn again. Saturn's going to stop on his sun for a month during the holidays. What do you think is going to happen? Now, he might go through it all right, but you're treated, I mean, Saturn is blockages.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's why people say to you, our everyday language is so wise. People, what do they say to you when you're uptight or you're unhappy? What do they tell you? Loosen up, right? That's what they tell you. It's exactly what Karen was saying. That's exactly what she does. Loosen up.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see, Elkie?
Well, yes, it forms like anything to do with the bones. I mean, the bones is classic, or anything where the body makes a package and puts it somewhere. You know, it can form cysts. It can form. It really depends on if there's more water in the chart. It'll make a watery cyst. If there's more earth in the chart, it'll make a hard bone spur or a calcification. You know, like it really depends on what it does. But it.
So if Saturn's on you, and that's why people scare you so much about your Saturn return. Ooh, wait till your Saturn return. It doesn't mean Saturn's out to get you. It means that what you're forming in your mind is going to manifest, including if you're forming a lot of good things, that'll manifest. I've seen the most wonderful things happen to people during Saturn returns. Depends on what you're building. Now we get into the big stuff, the big mamas, the one that got me last week, my lower leg. Uranus is between the foot and the knee. Got me in the calf muscle. It's very, very, very common when Uranus is on you that you fall and you break your ankle, you twist your ankle, you sprain your ankle, you have a calf muscle injury, you have something happen to your shin. I don't know why, but that's the part of the body that's Uranian. That's the part of the body that symbolizes your ability to go forward as an individual. I don't know why. I'm sure it's out there, but it's Uranus rules Aquarius, which is highly individuated. So my warning, or else it would have got broken. It's not broken. My warning was I was not doing things to individuate myself. I was not respecting the part of me that's trying to be an individual. Well, and there's several other things too, but I want to go to Elkie on this. What do you notice with Uranus?
It was really classic because when Uranus is like, especially if you're stewing about something. I was stewing about something. I was really worked up about something. I went for a walk and I stepped in a hole and I broke my ankle.
Oh.
And my moon was in Aquarius. And it usually injuries or anything to do with the moon is with medical astrology. The moon is big, but I broke my ankle, snapped it in pieces, you know. So, but it was because I was stewing. I couldn't let go. It was this, you know, and I wasn't being myself. And that's exactly what you're saying. There are injuries, but the injuries are often brought about by something mental.
Right. And another thing that's so Aquarian is this. And Uranus is the beautiful planet to use to teach with. You have no control over the energy that's coming through you. I'm going to repeat that. You have no control of the energy that's coming through you. What came over you? What got into you? It's literally like you go to bed with your finger in the 110. Every night you plug yourself into 110, plug yourself into the 110, you got the light bulb turned on. The morning you wake up, it's in the 440. People will tell you this. I'm beside myself. I'm coming out of my skin. They'll use these words. And what is your natural reaction? Shove it down. It's your natural reaction because you think you're in control of all this stuff. And you're not. Now that energy which Uranus is so inventive and wild and chaotic, which is what's behind all this Arab Spring and the American Spring that's going on now. Uranian energy is frenetic, it's unpredictable, it's not so. It's real strong in Trump's charts. One reason that he says, I like to be unpredictable, it's where it comes from. But it's a spastic energy, it's innovative, it's crazy. You see that energy with Curly from the Three Stooges. You see that energy with Robin Williams. That's where they get that sudden ability to just pull things out of nowhere. That's Uranus energy. You see it with great comedians who could spin on a dime. And some
Carol Burnett.
Huh?
Carol Burnett.
Yes. The ones that are really, really quick. Okay, that's Uranus energy. Now, when it comes through you, it can make you spastic, it can make you electric. One day I was walking by and I was in the middle of a tizzy about something, and the lightning hit the transformer above me. I'm walking by a telephone pole, and lightning hit the damn transformer 30 feet above my head, and then went, I went, wow. And I knew I caused it. Crazy energy. Now you, Karen, you must see people and it rules severe spasms, but you can feel this tremendous cosmic energy pouring through them, and it's not good or bad, but you don't fight it. You got to use it.
You release it.
Yes.
You have to ground it. If you ground it, it's way more helpful. There are people that are highly Uranian, and they run tremendous amounts of energy through their bodies, and they can short themselves out if they don't ground. So these are the people you ground yourself. You have a grounding practice every day. You know, Uranus is also sudden events that happen to you all of a sudden, and you just don't see it coming, and whammo, there you go.
It's always sudden. When people tell you it was sudden, you know it was Uranus. When you know it was Uranus, you know it was sudden. It's always a split second. This thing happened, changed my life forever. That's how Uranus works. It's not a bad energy, but it's one and the same as I'm fed up to here. If you feel Uranus coming, the example I always use is this. A man and a wife are not getting along very well. And they're not dealing with their problems. They're not going to therapy. They're not getting the proper out on the table. Let's try to solve it. And in this example, the man uses it incorrectly. She gets up one morning and she finds a note that says, honey, I'm gone. I can't take it anymore. Goodbye. Clear cut. That's Uranus. It's the only planet that will hit you exactly. When it's exact mathematically, that's when it'll happen. That's why you'll know when something's going to happen, and being an astrologer still happens. That really blows your mind. Now, that man who left his wife, I'm not judging him, but he used that energy wrongly because he waited till he got up to here, and he had to go. He could not have left the day before or the day after. It had to be that day. But if he had used the energy properly for 6 months, for 9 months, he would have gone to her and said, let's work this out. Let's deal with these issues. When the Uranus was there, but it was humming. It wasn't sharp and crazy. Let's go talk this through. Let's try to work it out. But instead, just try to suppress it. Try to suppress it. That's what we all do. And boy, I'm sure both of them can tell you trying to suppress your energy is like, woo, very dangerous. Can this happen when something transits Uranus as well as Uranus? Yes, it can. But whatever hits the Uranus takes on the nature of the planet that's hitting. So yeah, your natal Uranus can be explosive too, but not like a transiting Uranus. So instead, the guy doesn't deal with the wife, so he waits till he's had it. And Uranus is the planet that makes you fed up. What do you see, Karen?
Well, I keep thinking about how the mind is so attached to our feet and we don't realize it.
Wow. Fabulous.
I mean, there's a whole, I don't see the body with skin. I always see it without the skin.
Are
Not
you a
bloody and bruised.
are you a voyeur?
No. It's just when I look at people, and I do this in the mall, it doesn't matter where I'm at. If I see somebody with a funny something, I don't say something, but that's how I see them. But I do see a real connection to the head and the feet.
Well, tell us, is it because the feet are so far away from the head, or they're taken for granted? What?
Muscularly, we are totally connected from the back of our skull all the way down to our toes.
Wow.
And people that do muscle work, one reason a lot of it is incomplete is they don't get that picture, and they stop too soon instead of working across the places that it conjuncts.
It makes a lot of sense. Okay, going to Neptune, because we got two biggies left. When Neptune hits you, maybe we'll ask Karen a little bit about this. She could tell us about Neptune. Neptune's the weird guy, all right? Neptune hits you, what's common, I'm not a doctor. If you got a problem, see a doctor. Don't listen to me, but I will tell you what the astrological implications are. When Neptune hits you, most likely it's psychosomatic. You have very real symptoms. You go to the doctor and they chase their tail and they bring in 3 specialists and nobody can find out what it is, and they send you home and they tell you take some aspirin, or they tell you that it's a virus. And it's not real. It's your imagination. Well, what it usually is that you become much more sensitive. And things that didn't bug you before all of a sudden bug you. Because Neptune dissolves boundaries. And when it dissolves boundaries, it opens your nose, it opens your eyes, it opens your feelings, and you're open to energy around you that you normally aren't. So it's very common that it messes with your hay fever, with your allergies, with the sinuses, but it's very, very rare that Neptune hits you and leaves you with a permanent problem. The worst thing Neptune does when it's on you is give you possible psychosis, because Neptune doesn't have any respect for the left-hand brain. It's all right-hand brain. It's all the field of the nonverbal and the oneness of emotion. And if you're all left-hand brain, Neptune just dismantles you and you can't count on it, and all your walls start crumbling. And if you're not up for that, it can be very confusing. Elke?
Yeah, I'm under a Neptune transit right now, and Neptune is ruled by Pisces, and Pisces is water. And all of a sudden, I'm puffy. I'm all full of water. I'm like, I did exactly that. Went to the doctor, said to the doctor, I'm all puffy. The doctor's like, you know, your lymph nodes are fine. You know, it rules the immune system. It does rule, you know, allergies. My allergies are spiking like you wouldn't have it. And it's the watery stuff. It waters everything down. And, you know, once the transit's over, then, you know, it gets better.
If you think of it in terms of spirituality, Neptune is the most wonderful planet because it destroys the separation between you and God. But while that sounds cool and groovy, it's really a psychotic episode, because most people, when they see God and stuff and have visions, you've heard of the positives, most people can't talk and they're going like this and they can't explain it. But if you're not ready for it, if your society hasn't prepared you like the Indian society does, if you're not ready for this transpersonal experience, it's very disconcerting and alarming. But I'm not going to tell you, it does rule the lymph, there's no doubt. I'm not going to tell you that when Neptune hits you, it can't be real. is very possible, but usually it's glandular, it's more refined than it is in the bones and the joints, etc. Now,
But
finally, go ahead, Elke.
people can go delusional. They can have hallucinations. They can like go way off the deep end under a heavy Neptune transit. And especially, it always goes if you have the setup in your natal chart towards it. Otherwise, don't worry about it. Neptune will come around. You're not going to go delusional. But if you have Neptune conjunct your sun or something like that, or opposing your sun, squaring it, if you have a significant angular contact by Neptune, then you have more, then it becomes more of an important planet in your chart. Otherwise, it's just there and it, waters everything down.
Yeah, that's very good. That's well put. Now, Karen, did you want to say something about your Neptune and that would help us, or else I'm going to move on to Pluto?
The only thing.
No, I'm talking with, I'm sorry. I'll get back to you, Karen D. I'm talking with Karen S, because I noticed that Karen S and I have talked about this a long time ago. She went through a Neptune time that was not real pleasant, and I know you're away from it now. And when you get away from a Neptune transit years after, you can look back at it with a little more sanity. Can you tell us about yours, Karen?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had Neptune transiting over my midheaven, and I had gone through a major upheaval in my family. My son had cancer like several years before, and I was pretty on the outs with God at that point, pretty angry with God, and going on my own, so to speak. And when the Neptune transit came through, I had a complete breakdown. Everything in my life just started to, felt like it was, I felt like I was drowning. I felt like I was drowning in emotion. I felt like I was drowning in responsibility. I felt like I couldn't function. I ended up in bed, unable to do anything but barely get myself to the bathroom, and I couldn't swallow anything except for sips of water for 8 days. I lost 15 pounds in 8 days.
Wow.
So it was a really difficult time, and crawling out of that was a long 6-month process. So I'm Scorpio, and everybody always talks about, oh, Pluto. Oh man, Pluto. I'm like really okay with Pluto, but don't give me another Neptune over my midheaven.
Well, a couple of things that she said that are beautiful here. Number one thing I've noticed with people, and I'm not going to preach to you, I'm just going to tell you what it is. The best way to deal with a Neptune transit is to give it up and to tell God, I can't handle it, you're going to have to take it. And it seems to me from experience, the people that have the most trouble with Neptune are the ones that don't do that, because they think they can control stuff. Secondly, big planets. When big planets are on you, like Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, even Saturn, when they're right on you and it's really close, there is what I call spittle. The planet is so intense at those few days before, the few days after, that you're not going to even see your road ahead until it passes by a little, and you get past the intense energy because it's peaking so intensely. But usually when these planets move on, okay, but it's not uncommon when Neptune's on somebody that you need somebody to babysit you. Not uncommon at all. And her experience is not unusual.
Well, the other thing I was going to say is that because it was on my midheaven, I was like suicidal because I couldn't see any future. I couldn't see. I felt like I was just in this. I felt like literally when I think back on it, I felt like I was just under this like fog or
Yeah.
and I couldn't see clearly, and I couldn't see the future. I mean,
Now, when you look back at it years ahead, later, what do you think it was?
I think that it was, I wasn't doing my spiritual work. I had just turned my back on my connection.
Exactly.
And
Beautiful.
it was a bring me to my knees experience.
What a great description. Thank you. Karen D.
All I wanted to share is if you have someone that is in middle to late stages of some type of dementia,
Yeah.
you really need to keep an eye on them. If you have any even basic of where this is in their chart, because they don't have the ability to reason things through. One of the things I did with my father, when he kept telling me before he got close to the end, when he would tell me that he'd see things, I'd just encourage him to talk about it like it was normal. And it would calm him down really, really quick. And I did the same thing when I worked in the psych wards.
I know you told me about that. Now, one of the really things that's important is to realize this. We in America, if I can, tell me if I'm wrong, we think that God is up there and you got to go through the preacher to talk to him. Okay? Where Neptune is the direct experience of the God part inside of you. But most people, most Westerners, don't know that that's what that is. They got it mislabeled, and that's why it could be so confusing. Now, before we move to Pluto, two more things I got to tell you. In the past several years, Neptune has been going over the moon in Aquarius in the United States chart. Neptune went over the moon in Aquarius in the United States chart around the time that this whole thing's about weapons of mass destruction and all the lies and all the deception, which Neptune is known for. In the last several years, depending on what chart you use, with the most popular chart, Neptune's been right at the top, squaring the ascendant. Squaring the ascendant. This is why we've been in the clown show. Things seem to be unreal right now, don't they? I even saw a meme today on Facebook that said, if a clown came out of the woods right now, I'd probably go with him. Things are nuts, though. You see these things every night on the news, and you got the real lies and the real smoke and mirrors. And what's happening is not because somebody wants to confuse. It's not because God wants to punish us. What's happening is we're being stripped naked, and we're seeing how unspiritual we really are as a group, as a country. And you can see many, many, many people and groups now working real hard to strip us down voluntarily and to become naked and to start to really, truly grow spiritually. So the Neptune's been very, very hard, and it's going to get a lot more intense next year. Now, finally, with Pluto, and I had to reserve time for Pluto before I get on to Holly's chart. When Pluto hits you, it's a long period where you feel alone, you feel dark, you feel that the heavy weight is on you. It's not like Saturn. Saturn is a heavy weight, like I got a lot of work to do. Pluto is more of a soul, grave, heavy-duty energy. It's very common that you get dissatisfied with your life and you want to mean more, you want more meaning in it, and you really start to frown upon things that are half-assed in your life, that don't have any meaning, that don't have any soul, any courage, any purpose. Pluto gets really intense, and you'll start to notice that you become very impatient, if not intolerant, of people around you that don't have any courage. Now, Elke, where did you go? Did you disappear? There you are. when Pluto's on you, I mean, we could talk about this for months, but what do you see when people are under Pluto transits?
Well, we've talked about this lots, right? But if you suppress your innards or your urges or whatever you need to do, Pluto works in the underground. Pluto has to transform. And so if you suppress stuff, Pluto just sticks it somewhere and grows a little tumor. or it changes your DNA and turns it into a cancer.
Which means it really can be it can be cancerous. It doesn't have to, but it can be.
It can be Pluto, and it's especially if you don't do your work. If you ignore, if you just go through life drinking and gambling and whatever, and Pluto comes around, well, it knocks the socks off of you, and you're going to have to deal with the repercussions of it. And you end up with life-changing events.
When you see a great movie of a person, male or female, with great courage and they're leading the pack, that's somebody who's using Pluto to its nth degree. They're riding the wave, and it ain't easy, and they're out front, and they're doing it by themselves. And we're all different degrees, but if you're not doing what she said, it comes to get you. But it's not that it comes to get you. What comes to get you is your own Pluto, because your inner Pluto says you can do this. Don't shy away from this. You can do it. And I think that's what Stelke's saying. And
Karen has a question, Rick.
Yeah, Karen, go ahead.
I want to just share something. I just shared my experience about Neptune going over my midheaven. Well, in 1998, my husband had Pluto going over his midheaven, and he almost died. He lost all of his money that he had made. He made his fortune, and he lost every bit of it. And he lost me at that time. I walked out on him because he was so self-destructive. And it was like a clean sweep. It was like, and literally he almost died. And so for him, that was a reckoning. That was a reckoning. It was very different from my Neptune experience. It was a much more clear the decks type of, whatever's being misused and abused was kind of like shoved to the side. So
that's what's on America now. That's what's all over America's chart. Hi, John. From 2000, I'm going to turn it on for John here in a second. From 2008 to about 2024. I repeat, from about 2008, you saw what happened then, to about 2024 at least. This is the Pluto period. And a lot of people are asking me before I give it to John, they're asking me, what can I do? Well, what do you care about? What are you doing about what you care about? Go do it. John? What do you find with Pluto?
That's Pluto, well, I mean, it's digging up everything. I mean, if you can't see it right now, I mean, you don't really have to look too far just to see what's going on. I mean, look how mucked up our political system is. Look at society. I mean, I don't think it's even people so much. I just think Pluto and Capricorn is big business, the corporations. It's David Koch, I just read an article about him today. I mean, this guy is the face of Pluto. I know you said, Rick, that, what's his name, Farmer Bro, the Shkreli guy, was the one that was smirking in his congressional hearing, was kind of like the face of capitalism. But I really think it's David Koch.
Well,
this is like,
one is an Aries and one is a Scorpio.
He's a Scorpio. He's a Scorpio.
This is the epitome of Pluto.
Yeah, I mean, but there's far-reaching tentacles, structural tentacles, and everything. And as Pluto's as Pluto tends to do, I mean, as you get into its advanced stages, I mean, now it's just like out in your face, like, okay, what are you going to do about me? It's just, you know, like really just kind of getting up in your face with these problems. It's like, I'm here, I've got all this stuff. What are you going to do about it?
And it threatens absolute destruction. And it's all about nuclear stuff too. Yeah, go ahead.
Pluto, if you can still channel it though. I mean, you know, Pluto transit comes around, you get angry or whatever. Go into therapy. Go dig around in your psyche. That's what it's all about. It's like going in the dark closet and digging around and finding it all, you know, and chucking out what doesn't work. When I had Pluto cross my ascendant, I got really sick. I had an elective surgical procedure and I was poisoned, even though poisoning is Neptune, but it was Pluto in my case. And I was never the same afterwards. I've been sensitive to drugs and medications ever since. I can't take them anymore. I've had to go cold turkey. But that was a good thing because they would have pumped me full of meds. This way, it actually saved my life, you know?
Well, you're exactly right, and I've told you before, and I'll repeat it now because it's unbelievable. In a counselor position like mine, when Pluto is on you, the number one thing I'm looking for, and this is no hogwash, the number one thing I'm listening for is you to tell me you've gone down into your basement and you're clearing out your basement. I'm not talking metaphorically. I'm talking about you go down and start throwing junk out. And you get these people, when Pluto finally kicks on them, they're just throwing the junk out. They got to do it. But you see with the United States, some of us are doing it. Some of us are hanging on to the old and blaming somebody. But we all need to go down into the collective United States basement and throw the junk out. Everybody that's non-American is busy telling us, but we don't want to hear it. Because USA is number one.
There's a few of us here who are trying. I mean, I think, you know, Bernie being a good example.
Oh, sure.
Some people are trying, but we've got to do more. And you can't run from it because it's just going to get worse if you do. You can't turn a blind eye to Pluto. You can't say, oh, this is going on. No, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. La, la, la. Let me watch Fox News.
Yeah.
You know, you can't run from it. You cannot run from Pluto.
You put that on top of the fact that we are generally a Cancerian society, and Cancerian energy is known for, I don't want to hear the facts. I want to hear what's going to keep me safe. And when you mix the two, it's dangerous. So there's every reason to believe that we can break through it, but it's going to take a lot of work. I want to take 5 or 7 minutes here and open this up to questions, because I'm going to look at Holly's chart. But if you have any questions about the planets going over you, let me see you raise your hand. Yes, Susan F., what's your question?
I just wanted to know, all right, I have Pluto in my 4th house, and you know the fire next door that burned the big house, and my house didn't get touched at all. It just, I know I can't ask why did that happen, because
I can tell you exactly why it happened. I'll tell you exactly why it happened. Pluto's on your 4th?
Yeah.
You have to understand what is your 4th house. Okay, here's what your 4th house is, which represents Cancer, the sign Cancer in all people. When Pluto goes over your 4th house, it's very difficult. It's not easy. But your roots are burning. You need to be repotted.
All right.
And if you ignore it and you try to keep the same pot and the same plant, because you're real comfy with that plant, even though the damn thing's dying, you're in for trouble. You need to have the courage to lift that plant out and let that water, dark, dirty, green water, drip off that plant and cut those stems off there and go buy yourself a beautiful new pot with new soil and plant yourself. That's the bravery. But the staying with it, you were warned with the fire next door. The fire, in a way, is meaningless. It sure is meaningful, but it's symbolic that you can't keep operating in the same emotional nest. The 4th house is your emotional nest. What is
All
my
right.
emotional nest like? And I've got to be, that's Pluto. I've got to become honest and take a look at it and be bold enough to repot myself. And if you do, Pluto just brings you marvelous assistance, including this group. Okay, next question, anybody? Karen D.
And I'm probably gonna screw this up.
I don't think so.
But I have Neptune in my 4th house with Jupiter like 1 degree away.
Neptune is natally in your 4th house or transiting?
Neptune is in my 4th house natally, and
All
Jupiter
right.
is the one that's
So
crossing.
Jupiter is crossing your Neptune.
Yes.
Wonderful.
It's nice, yes.
Wonderful transit. Fabulous transit. That is a transit of opening up spiritually and being sure of it. It's you getting past all that Virgo, all that thinking and analyzing and just knowing. Go ahead, Elke.
I'm feeling a lot of spiritual shifting. I've
Yeah,
been
it's real. It's
meditating,
very, very
a lot of
real.
and today I got a call, and the guy that called me I've known him since I was 5 and he was 3, and he found a client of his. His mother passed away this past weekend, and there's a house on a lake that's absolutely gorgeous.
Neptune is water, always. Neptune is water. You are getting God's grace delivered directly to you. And to the degree that you are pure enough, which means not blocked, you'll receive it. But Jupiter, Neptune, on one hand, is very, very good, and God's graces grow and your spiritual connection grows. On the other hand, you have what a lot of people are doing politically, and it's called joining a cult, escapism. You don't want to deal with anything. That's the other extreme. But yours is not going to last a long time. Jupiter usually lasts about a month before and a month after, so make all the best of it while you can. Before I go to the next chart, I want to see what Elke's got to say about what we just talked about. And
I just want
we got one final question from Susan Avere.
I just want to say that with Jupiter, it's tricky. And I had to learn that the hard way from my chart, because Jupiter is not always the good guy.
Right.
Because Jupiter expands or enlarges, and it doesn't have an energy attached to it. So if you have Jupiter in aspect with challenging planets, like in my case, I have it in squaring my Saturn and my Pluto, it makes it very difficult. And that any transit will color that difficulty, will bring up that difficulty all over again. So when people say, yay, I'm looking forward to the Jupiter transit, I go, oh, Jesus.
People have a completely unrealistic look at Jupiter. And I will tell you before I go to the last question with Susan, in my life, after 38 years of doing astrology, by far, Saturn, Pluto, whatever, the most destructive energy in my life has been Jupiter.
Jupiter, yeah.
Without a doubt. For many, many reasons. I'm going to go to Susan, then we're going to get on to the charts. Go ahead, Susan.
Thank you. I was just wondering if you could tell me about Saturn currently opposing the moon.
Well, Saturn going across from the moon is not simple. If Saturn is opposing the moon, then the moon must be in, Saturn is in
Sag.
Sag, so the moon must be in Gemini.
Oh, Gemini, yeah.
Well, Saturn opposite a moon is completely different than Saturn opposite a moon in Gemini. And Saturn opposite a moon in Gemini is difficult because the moon in Gemini's nature is wants to bounce around. It doesn't want to go deep. It doesn't want to take things seriously. Anybody I deal with Moon and Gemini, I tell them start to lighten up, allow yourself to play more, etc. And they're so relieved because they just think, oh, I thought I was just flaky or whatever. You need to play. Geminis play, go here, go look and play. Well, when Saturn hits your moon, Saturn is the part of you that's inspecting things not to be a drag or a bummer or restrictive. Saturn comes around, it's kind of like an inspector to see, is it working? Is this thing working? So what it's doing to you, it's your active Saturn now. It's not out there. It's your active Saturn now looking at your emotional habits. Do your emotional habits work for you? That's what it's doing. You will always get a little bit of negativity from it. You'll get some sour stomach. You may have some stomach problems. You may have some in the home life, additional responsibilities dumped on you, especially the karma to your mom and dad. But Saturn's trying to ask you, your Saturn's trying to ask your moon, or first of all, it's trying to define what the moon has been doing, get a more of a grip on it, and it wants to know, is that moon working for you? Okay. And if not, it wants to, what does Saturn do? Wants to make sure. It's kind of like Virgo, wants to fix it. It wants to make sure the moon is operating for you. And in your case, being a Sag, the moon in Gemini is very conducive. So how do you react to that?
It's interesting because when Saturn just swept over my sun in the last year or so, I didn't really notice it.
That's very common.
And now I was kind of concerned. I think last time Saturn opposed my moon, I went through a period of depression.
That's very common. But the reason you didn't notice Saturn is not because you're blind to it, but the opposite. You live with Saturn Venus. And I keep telling you how strong your Saturn Venus is in your chart, and you're not aware of it because your Neptune is so strong. Your Neptune is so strong, you're not aware of how strong the Saturn is. So when you have Saturn Venus and then you get Saturn Moon, they're not much different. I'm sorry, but I got to move on now because I promised, like I said, I would do a chart a week. And next week, Ruthie Hale is going to be on with us. She's listening by phone. We'll get to you next week, Ruthie. But I'm going to go to Holly's chart now. Holly, you are now unmuted. And thank you, everybody, for your different 2 cents, 4 cents, 6 cents. We're going to go to Holly's chart, and this is where we say goodbye to our bye, YouTubers. We're going to go with individual charts. Thanks for joining us.